Hey everyone, I hope you're well. This is the story about what if Naruto could manipulate shadows. Before we start, please subscribe to the channel and like the video as well. So without any further ado, let's start the what if. Chunin Exams Arena. The Chunin exam finalists stood in the arena before the proctor, Gecko Hayate. They were all there with two exceptions. Dosu was reported dead not too long ago, and Sasuke was nowhere to be seen. Naturally, since it was the Uchiha, everyone was all hot and bothered by it, but Naruto didn't really care. Doubtless the council and the people in the stadium would guarantee an extended time allowance for the Uchiha to get there. 1. The crowd was extremely large. The stadium was absolutely packed to capacity. He knew that Gaara and Baki were in the crowd, as were several dozen Oto ninja in disguise. The Suna ninja and the majority of the Oto force were in the forest preparing. There were also various lords and daimyos in the private boxes, making wagers on the fights. He didn't know where Orochimaru was, but he knew that he was nearby. The Hokage and Kazekage were watching the finals from a large balcony overlooking the arena with several ninja from their villages doing bodyguard duty. The final matchups were an old-fashioned tournament. The actual fights would be: Round 1, Inuzuka Kiba vs Hyuga Neji. Round 2, Uzumaki Naruto vs Uchiha Sasuke. Round 3, Aburame Shino vs Sabaku no Kankuro. Round 4, Sabaku no Temari vs Nara Shikamaru. It was simple and easy. Beat the crap out of your opponent until he either dies, gives up, or loses consciousness. The skills of the combatants would be reviewed by a group of people including the Hokage and the Kazekage along with a few of the elite jonin from each of the two villages. Those who fulfilled their unknown qualifications would become Chunin. Those who didn't, well, good luck in 6 months. The time was upon them for the exams to begin and Sasuke had yet to show up. Naruto guessed that either Kakashi was training Sasuke in the middle of nowhere and lost track of time, so they had a long way to go before they got here, or Kakashi was waiting until the last second to show off the precious Uchiha in an overblown dramatic fashion. Probably the latter, knowing him. The word came down and apparently the Hokage's call was to start the matches now and hope that Sasuke arrived before his round came up, otherwise he would be disqualified. Naruto wasn't surprised. If it was him or anyone else, except maybe Neji, they would have been disqualified then and there. But he kept his musings to himself as the first round between Kiba and Neji got started, as the rest of the combatants left to a private balcony to watch the matches as they waited their turn. Naruto hadn't changed his outfit much for the exams, just replacing the normal shinobi sandals with a pair of combat boots since he would be doing more fighting than running, and he was also wearing his sword on his back again. He watched as Hayate declared the start of the first match. The crowd cheered on the combatants as the Hyuga prodigy clashed with the Inuzuka heir. Naruto could idly hear Lee cheering for Neji in the background, though it could have been his imagination. The Inuzuka wasn't putting up much of a fight, unsurprising since he only had basic taijutsu moves that were dodged easily enough. Kiba tried just about every move he had, from normal punches to the Getsuga, his trump card. But nothing worked against the Hyuga prodigy. Every charge was evaded, every strike blocked. If Kiba had some ninjutsu in his arsenal, they would have done wonders in this fight. A taijutsu fight with a Hyuga isn't something that is considered wise unless you have some incredible skill at hand-to-hand fighting, which Kiba did not possess. After a while the match was decided. Neji put a few Juken strikes into Kiba's legs, paralyzing them. He did the same with his arms, and then he got his dog with a shot to the ribs. Kiba was unable to continue on. The fight was over and Neji had barely broken a sweat. Hayate just said, in a loud official-sounding voice, the winner of the first match, Hyuga Neji. Then the crowd cheered in favor of the victor as the wounded Inuzuka and his dog were taken in by a medical team. Hayate shouted out, now the second match, Uzumaki Naruto vs Uchiha Sasuke. However, Uchiha Sasuke has yet to arrive, so I have no choice but to discu. He was cut off, however, as a scarred jonin arrived next to Hayate and whispered something into his ear. Hayate nodded and the jonin left. He said to the crowd, Uchiha Sasuke has not yet arrived in time for his match, so his fight will be shifted into the last slot on the roster. If he does not arrive by then, he will be disqualified. so we will skip to the third match, Aburame Shino vs Sabaka no Kankuro. The crowd seemed displeased that Sasuke wouldn't be fighting as soon as they thought, while Naruto just smirked as he thought, I fucking knew it. Sanda Ime you counsel bitch, if it was anyone else, well almost, they would have been disqualified when they didn't show up at the appropriate time, but since he's an Uchiha he gets all these time extensions. I knew this was going to happen. I wouldn't be shocked if Hatake and the council came up with this together so that they could show off the Uchiha more, and Sarutobi just folds like wet cardboard, spineless monkey. Normally Naruto would be pissed off at having to wait for his fight, but he was making an exception. The invasion wouldn't begin until his fight with Sasuke. The longer that it was delayed, the longer that Suna and Oto had to prepare. He was more than willing to be patient to give them the time that they needed. In the meantime, he had 2 more fights to watch. Or, he did. One of them was ruined when Kankuro yelled out, Proctor, I withdraw. The crowd went nuts with that one. They were jeering, throwing crap over the side, you name it. Naruto didn't see this coming, but he could understand the logic behind it. Given the inevitable attack, he wanted to keep the workings of his puppet secret so that no one would have any information on how he fought. Good strategy. While the crowd got pissed off, Hayate was once more calm and yelled, Sabaka no Kankuro has forfeited, therefore the winner of the third match is, by default, Aburame Shino. While Kankuro waited in a corner, Shino looked slightly pissed off, not that it was easy to tell. Hayate coughed, then yelled, now, the fourth match, Sabaka no Temari vs Nara Shikamaru. Temari used a shunshin to get to the arena floor, while Shikamaru stayed up in the box, mumbling something about the whole thing being troublesome. Wanting some form of entertainment before his fight, Naruto leaned over and whispered into Shikamaru's ear, I warn you now Shikamaru, if you quit, we will have a problem. Shikamaru looked into Naruto's eyes, fear evident before he shuffled down to the arena to begin his fight. Naruto watched in a content fashion, eating from a bag of chocolate truffles as he watched Shikamaru be chased around the arena by Temari's futon jutsu. Shikamaru put up a good fight, always managing to avoid getting cut to pieces by the blades of wind, and though he did stumble once or twice, and got cut a few times, he never got hit full on. Shikamaru was at a serious disadvantage. Not only did Temari have him by 2 years of experience, Shikamaru only had one useful jutsu in his repertoire, the Kage main no jutsu. However, he didn't have the shadows necessary to get it to reach Temari, who was fighting long range. He tried a few interesting tactics, such as making a parachute out of his jacket and a kunai thrown into the air by one of Temari's jutsu, but the Sunanin always noticed what he was trying and avoided it, keeping out of range of the band of darkness. Shikamaru tried his hardest, which was a surprise given his laziness, but he was eventually bested, running out of chakra before surrendering. He wouldn't have lasted much longer even if he had more chakra to work with. Most of the trees in the arena were cut to pieces. He wouldn't have had anywhere to run in order to avoid her jutsu if the fight kept on going, and then he would have been screwed. Now, the time finally came. He just whispered, nice fight Temari-chan, into the girl's ear as he passed her in the hall. He noticed her fighting hard not to blush. Naruto stood alone in the arena as Hayate yelled, Uchiha Sasuke has not yet arrived in time for his match, so by exam regulations he is. Once more he was interrupted from disqualifying Sasuke by the arrival of that scarred jonin. He was told something or other and then Hayate nodded before the jonin vanished. Hayate yelled, Uchiha Sasuke has still not arrived, so we will give him 10 minutes to arrive. If he does not arrive by that time, then he will be disqualified. Naruto smirked at the obvious favoritism. He just thought, Sarutobi you council's bitch. Grow a fucking backbone and disqualify the prick. You would have done it with anyone else. But Naruto had no say in the matter. He would have to wait patiently while Sasuke took his sweet time in getting there. He didn't really care, Konoha wouldn't even be around anymore by the end of the day, so he could give them this final courtesy. He would be patient before destroying the Uchiha in front of the entire village. He thought to himself, it's true what they say, anticipation makes the meal all that much sweeter. He formed himself a chair from the nearby darkness and sat down as he waited out the 10 minutes. The time slowly crept by, 1 minute, then another, then another. Eventually 9 minutes passed, then 9 minutes and 30 seconds. Hayate was counting down the seconds on his watch. When he got to 5 seconds, there was a sudden explosion of smoke from the middle of the arena, about 10 feet in front of Naruto. When it cleared, it revealed none other than Uchiha Sasuke and Hatake Kakashi standing back to back. Sasuke was looking smug as always, probably proud of himself for making such a supposedly badass entrance. Naruto just thought that he was a fucking stuck-up douche, but we all have our opinions. Kakashi then had the fucking nerve to ask Hayate, "So sorry, we aren't late, are we?" Hayate just said, in a clipped tone, "You are late, but you had a time extension, luckily for you." Another 10 seconds and Sasuke would have been disqualified. "So if you don't mind, please leave the arena so that the match can begin." Kakashi nodded and vanished. Naruto stood up, the chair vanishing into the darkness from whence it came, and Hayate stood roughly between the two. Sasuke's outfit had changed a bit, but he was still a stuck-up douchebag. He just smirked and said, "Are you scared, you idiot?" Naruto smiled and relied, "Yes, actually, I am very scared of being bored to death during our fight. I hope for your sake that you have improved drastically in the last month, Uchiha. If you are anything like you were then, you won't last more than a minute." Hayate signaled the match to begin and the crowd roared as Sasuke ran forward yelling, "It's you that won't last a minute against me." Naruto stood and let the darkness rise from the ground and block Sasuke's first punch. His eyes widened in surprise when Sasuke vanished and reappeared behind him, sending a powerful kick to the back of his head which was blocked. He thought to himself, well, he really has improved. It's absolutely amazing what Kakashi can do when he isn't reading his porn. In the crowd, people were screaming for the Uchiha to defeat the demon brat and other such bullshit. Lee was cheering for Naruto, as were Guy and Hinata, albeit silently on her part. Sakura and Ino, well, you've seen them, what do you think they did? Guy was pretty much amazed at how much Sasuke had improved even though he stole Lee's taijutsu using the Sharingan. Kakashi just looked proud, arrogant, and smug at Sasuke's improvement. Sasuke was getting nowhere fast. He kept trying to outrun the shadows and get a hit on his opponent, but that darkness was ever present, blocking his attacks, expanding to trap him or catch him. Sasuke avoided the solid darkness at all costs. He knew that if he got caught then it was over. Sasuke was getting pretty frustrated. No matter what he tried, he couldn't get close enough to hit him. He knew that he was better, he just knew it, but that damn shield kept getting in his way. He attempted to punch Naruto right in the face, but it was once more blocked by a wall of darkness. Sasuke jumped back as the black mass came toward him, shifting constantly, hoping to ensnare him. He dodged to the side at the last second as a black column came straight at him. He managed to avoid getting hit by the blast, but he almost had his head cut off. When he dodged to the side of the column, a mass came out of the side he was on, forming an axe that swung at his neck. He managed to dodge at the last second though. The darkness hadn't had enough, it would seem. The large strike that Sasuke dodged broke apart into small spheres which came rocketing toward him, seeking to pummel him into oblivion. Once more Sasuke's speed came through, though he did take a hit in the right arm. Sasuke grabbed his right arm in pain. The limb had gone numb, though feeling was gradually returning as he flooded chakra into it. A large black bruise was already forming at the impact site of the sphere. Naruto smirked as he sent a spear ripping through the air to take him down. Sasuke once more avoided the attack, though he was scratched by it. While he was in the air, Naruto took the opportunity and went through several hand seals before shouting, "Futon, de Tapa," and blasting Sasuke with a large amount of air, sending him back to the arena wall and cracking the stone. Sasuke was on his feet again before long and managed to avoid the Rankyaku that Naruto sent at him from a distance, watching in shock as the blade of energy left a deep gash in the stone. Then Naruto used a Soru and vanished, though Sasuke's eyes barely managed to track him. It wasn't enough to predict his movements, but the Sharingan allowed Sasuke to dodge the high-speed Jugen that was aimed at Sasuke's head. Sasuke watched in horror as the stone for several feet around the impact crater shattered, falling around Naruto in large chunks. Naruto smirked before saying, "Are you still so sure that you can win Sasuke?" Rankyaku. Then with several kicks, he sent several blades toward the Uchiha. He had to give Sasuke credit, he was harder to kill than a cockroach. Every blade was narrowly avoided, though he did gain several cuts from the various attacks. Sasuke was desperate, it was obvious. He ran up the wall of the arena, and then turned around to face his opponent. He did 3 hand seals before gripping his left hand as it was engulfed in lightning. He shouted, "Chidori," as he ran down the wall toward Naruto. Naruto was worried for the first time in the fight. The Chidori was a dangerous move that could pierce his shield if it connected. That was the weakness of the Shadow Shield and his solid darkness. Fire and lightning were the representatives of light in the 5 elements, water and wind were the representatives of darkness in the 5, and earth was neutral. Light and its immense heat, its burning fire and bright lightning. Darkness and its immense cold, its frigid water and biting wind. The 2 forces were exact opposites, strong and weak against the other at the same time. As a result, fire could burn his solid darkness if it was strong enough and lightning could cut through it. The Chidori could pierce through his shield like it wasn't even there. So he didn't even bother to bring it up, he let Sasuke come at him, not letting him attack the darkness lest it reveal the weakness of the shield. Nobody would suspect the real reason that he let Sasuke get that close. Sasuke got within 3 feet of Naruto and stabbed his hand forward to pierce his heart, but it was stopped. Naruto grabbed Sasuke's right wrist and the Chidori winked out in an instant. Sasuke's unelectrified left hand pressed hard against Naruto's chest, not doing any damage at all. Naruto smirked and said, "Are you trying to feel me up, Uchiha? I always knew you were gay." Then he reared back his fist and yelled, "Jugen," as he punched Sasuke hard in the stomach, causing him to cough up blood as he soared back into the arena wall. Naruto walked to the downed Sasuke as he said, "I can't believe you really thought you could win. Nice try, though, I must admit. You really have improved, gaining that kind of speed that quickly and learning the Chidori at the same time, all in a month. Very impressive, just nowhere near enough to secure victory." Naruto stopped about 10 feet away as Sasuke managed to stand up again. Sasuke wiped the blood from his mouth and said, "Fine then, if mine techniques won't work against you, let's see if your techniques will." Naruto frowned as Sasuke took a very familiar stance. Well, to Naruto it was familiar at least. He thought to himself, that idiot couldn't be thinking of trying that against me. There is no way that he's that stupid. His questions were answered however as Sasuke brought one leg forward, sending a kick at Naruto even though he was 10 feet away as he yelled, "Rankyaku." He sent a bright blue blade at Naruto, originating from his leg during the kick. The moment it did though, several bursts of blood came from his leg and Sasuke grabbed his leg as he screamed in agony. Naruto eyed the incoming Rankyaku and didn't do anything to stop its course. It hit him straight on and broke in 2 upon contact. Each half fell to the side and hit the ground, raising perhaps a centimeter or 2 of dirt. Naruto didn't use his darkness to block the attack, nor did he use a Tekai. The Rankyaku used was just so weak that it couldn't penetrate human skin. Naruto laughed as the Uchiha grabbed his leg in pain, he laughed hard. He just stammered out, "Why you fucking idiot. I can't believe you were dumb enough to try that. Ha 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 ha." Sasuke gritted his teeth in the immense pain in his leg as Naruto continued, "Ha ha ha. Honestly, trying to use a Rokushiki technique with a body that pathetically weak? That's just ridiculous and hilarious. Your Sharingan told you what to do, but you didn't have what it took to do it without hurting yourself. Your body is so weak that when you attempted the Rankyaku, it did it, but the result was pathetically weak. I just have to wonder how many times your leg bones were fractured when you tried that, and how many muscles were torn. This is rich, ha 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 ha." During Naruto's revelry though, a strange thing occurred. A large burst of smoke consumed the Kage box. A few moments later the Kazekage erupted from the smoke, carrying the Hokage with him to the roof of the building. Naruto smiled at the sight. The signal had been given, and at that moment a genjutsu was going over the crowd, putting them to sleep. In the distance you could hear faint sounds of battle, and Otonin abandoned their costumes and drew their knives. He saw Gaara, Kankuro, and Temari group up and dash off into the forest. Baki stayed behind and engaged Hayate in battle. Sasuke groaned in immense pain. Naruto smiled widely at the sights and sounds. The signal had been given, the invasion had begun. Konoha's death knell just rang loud and clear to the world. Naruto laughed even louder than he did before. Chunin Exam Arena. Naruto calmed down a bit as Sasuke howled in pain due to the massive damage to his leg done by his own harebrained move trying to steal and use the Rankyaku with a weak body. Naruto watched as most of the people in the stadium were put under by a genjutsu performed by an Oto ninja somewhere. Kakashi and Guy had begun combating the attacking ninja in the stadium while Hayate fought Baki. Sounds of walls crashing down could be heard in the distance. The smell of blood and death began to fill the air. He looked up and saw the Kazekage talking to the Hokage. Something about being able to stop this now, he didn't really care. As much as Naruto would like to just stick around and watch events unfold, he had a few things to take care of during the invasion. He walked over to Sasuke and said, "Well, Uchiha, it looks like our match is at an early end. Such a shame." Then he stomped hard on Sasuke's wounded leg, causing him to scream, but nobody heard him. He put some more weight onto Sasuke's wounded leg and said, "Luckily for you, I still need you alive for a little while longer. Don't worry though, we'll finish this another time, I guarantee it. I'm not sure exactly when, but we will meet again." Then he let up on Sasuke's leg, causing the Uchiha to sigh in relief before he was viciously kicked in the ribs, causing him to go on his stomach. Naruto walked over to him and said, "But you know what? I'm such a nice guy that I'll give you a little present, something to remember me and this day by. I think you'll really like it." Then he put his booted foot on Sasuke's back, pressing him into the dirt as he went through a few dozen hand seals. When he finished, he held up his right hand and it was engulfed in a dark green light. He pressed the hand against Sasuke's neck, opposite the curse seal, and the sound of sizzling flesh was heard as Sasuke screamed in pain. Naruto just said, "Shikishu no Fuin." 1. Naruto removed his hand from the boy's neck and admired his handiwork. The sigil was seared into his skin. The black of frostbite was around the glowing green mark that faded to a pale red of a fresh scar. The mark was small and geometric. It was two small diamonds connected at a single point with a line going from one end to another. The lines forming the top point did not connect. 2. Naruto smiled and said, "There, something to show you never-ending agony as I take care of more important things. It will even tell you when your time has come, warning you when I am near. You can thank me later." Naruto paused as Sasuke groaned in pain. Naruto leaned forward and put his hand to his ear as though trying to hear something. He said, "What's that? You want to give me a present too? Well, that's thoughtful, but there's no need for it, Sasuke. I'll always have a soft spot right here in the bottom of my boot for you no matter what. I don't need a present to remember you by. Thanks for offering though." Naruto looked up and looked around a bit as he said, "Let's see, I can't have you caught by Orochimaru yet, and you're pathetic in your current state, no way to defend yourself at all. So I'll need to hide you somewhere nice and safe until this is over. Now the only question is where." "Ah. That looks promising." Then he picked up Sasuke and formed a sphere of darkness around him, hiding the boy from view. As this was happening, 3 spears of solid darkness flew from the nearby shadows and pierced a section of the wall, causing large pieces of stone to fall. As they did, Naruto took the sphere containing the now unconscious Sasuke and kicked it under the falling rubble. Before long the sphere could not be seen. Naruto collapsed the sphere once the rock had settled. He just smiled and said, "There, no one will find him until the invasion is over, though he will be quite uncomfortable when he wakes up. At least he won't be captured. Never let it be said that I don't help my comrades. Now then, I have somewhere else to be at the moment. Those ninja I put under a genjutsu should be making their move right about now." Then he walked into a nearby shadow and used a Kage Hoku to leave the arena. As he left, he was quite amazed that none of the ninja paid attention to the collapsing wall. They must have been too preoccupied with keeping themselves and the stadium audience alive, probably putting to some jutsu going astray. Konoha back alley. Anko was having a bad day. It didn't start out that way, but it turned out that way. Sure, technically any day in Konoha was a bad day for her, but still this one was worse than usual. First, there was the fact that today was the Chunin final exam and she was stuck on guard duty at some out-of-the-way wall post. Everyone hated guard duty, but today of all days it was just unbearable not being able to watch the Uchiha get his ass kicked by Naruto-kun. And that was another thing, she couldn't get the Gaki out of her mind. Every time her thoughts wandered, they eventually fell to the topic of Uzumaki Naruto. It was maddening. Every time she thought his name she always added kun to the end, and it was driving her nuts that she couldn't stop and she didn't know why. Then the invasion started when a trio of extremely large snakes burst through the wall not too long ago, about 2 posts away. She, like everyone else, joined in the counterattack, but things started getting bad when Suna and Oto Ninja joined the fray against them. She was a Tokubetsu Jonin, so she held her own pretty well, but she still took a kunai in the shoulder. Putting the pain aside for the moment, she spotted the dickhead that did it and went after him. Then the prick ran into a back alley where she continued on her chase, where she finally nailed him. Then she turned and dodged 3 more kunai launched at her from behind. Then dodging another few that came from the other direction, meaning that she was surrounded on 2 sides. Normally this wouldn't bother her, except that these 2 were Konoha Anbu. And that's where we find our pretty little snake ninja, caught in the middle. She yelled at the pair of Anbu, "What the hell are you 2 doing? I'm an ally and we're under attack." One of the Anbu, with a frog mask, said, "We are eliminating the traitor within our ranks that gave crucial information to the Nukenin Orochimaru." She looked at the Anbu incredulously and said, "That's utter bullshit. I'm no traitor. You have no proof of such things." The second Anbu, with a monkey mask, said, "We have the proof we need. Our suspicions were finally proven just yesterday. You, Mitarashi Anko, are a traitor to Konoha and are to be executed by us." She looked between the 2 and said, "If you do this, the Hokage will have your heads when this is all over. That's assuming you 2 win." Although she couldn't see it, the frog-masked Anbu smiled. He said, "You dumb snake whore, it was the Hokage who ordered us to execute you." She couldn't have been more shocked if you hooked her up to the city grid. The Hokage ordered this? She thought, there's no way that he would. I've been completely loyal, I always have been. Why would he do this to me? She would have said that they were lying, but she knew that they weren't. Years of being an interrogator required her to learn when somebody was lying, signs that even Jonin, Anbu, or even a Kage couldn't hide. It was really important when the final exam to becoming the head of the interrogation department was an interrogation of the Hokage himself, within suitable limits of course, such as no bodily harm. There were some that could hide the more subtle signs, but they would require an insane amount of knowledge of the human body to be able to pull it off. An expert medical ninja would be able to do it, like one of the head honchos at the hospital or Tsunade herself, but aside from people like that, she could tell when someone was lying with about a 95% success rate. And these 2 Anbu weren't lying. The Sandaime really did order her execution on false grounds. She believed in him and he stabbed her in the back just like everyone else. If she wasn't in such a tough situation at the moment, she probably would have broken down crying right there. One of the 2 people who she really trusted had betrayed her and felt like someone ripped her heart out. The Sandaime and Kurenai, those were the only 2 people she ever trusted after Orochimaru betrayed her, and the one she trusted more did just what her traitorous teacher did years before, more or less. She thought to herself, now I see where that damn snake got it from, at least, like student like sensei. She didn't say a word, she couldn't trust her voice at that point, she just looked up silently and pulled out a kunai, determined to go down fighting or escape if she could. She wasn't sure if she could defeat 2 Anbu with an advantage like theirs, with having her surrounded in a tight space, and with her already wounded, but she would try her hardest and fight to the end, whatever that end may be. She stayed close to the wall, doing her best to keep both enemies in sight, her eyes were attracted to the frog-masked Anbu on the right when he started doing hand seals. She prepared herself for an attack, but she was surprised when he slammed his hands onto the ground and shouted, "Doton, Doryuhiki." Before a wall of rock came from the ground, sealing off the alleyway, leaving her with two paths of escape, up and to the rooftops or to the left through the monkey-masked ninja. Going up became a bad idea when the frog-masked Anbu appeared at the top of the wall, kunai in hand. If she was airborne, she would be an easy target. Then her eyes widened when she heard the monkey-masked Anbu behind her yell, "Katan, Karyu Enden." She looked back and saw that in the few seconds that his partner distracted her with the wall of earth, the moment she took her eyes off of him, the monkey-masked ninja started doing hand seals, leaving her with two options: go up and put herself at severe risk of being hit by kunai, or stay there and face the fire. She made her choice in under a second, throwing her kunai at the ninja on the wall and jumping upward as hard as she could, doing her best to get as high as possible. The plan would have worked, probably, if it wasn't for one thing: the fact that the ninja on the wall was a bunshin, just a plain academy-style bunshin. The real one was revealed to be atop the nearby building, where Anko couldn't hope to see him from where she was. She was about 3/4 of the way to the top of the building when he slammed his hands onto the roof and made another Doryuhiki, this one going horizontally from the ledge, bridging the gap between the two buildings and stopping her from gaining any more altitude. She was stuck with stone to the sides and below, and walls of earth and rock above and behind, with a large amount of white-hot fire coming straight at her. She closed her eyes tight, preparing for the horrible pain of being burned to death, but it never came. There was no heat, no pain, no burning sensation, just a chilling cold all around her. She opened her eyes and realized that she couldn't see. Then the wall in front of her melted away, revealing the blackened alleyway which had been burned. She looked at the substance of the wall and saw that it was solidified darkness, the material that shielded Uzumaki Naruto. She noticed that there were several sunken sections in the material, like there was something there before, but it wasn't now. That was all she could see before it surged forward and condensed into a thick line that went straight through the surprised monkey Anbu's neck, pinning him to the wall. She looked around for Uzumaki. Then she heard a cry from above her. It was the frog-masked Anbu. She got out from the earthy ceiling and jumped to the rooftops to see that the frog Anbu was dead, decapitated, and that Naruto was holding a bloodied sword in his hand. He smiled and said, "Looks like I got here just in time, Enko-chan." She was shocked even more than before. First she finds out that the Sandaime betrayed her, now that she was saved by the guy that she had been fantasizing about for around a month and a half. This was just too much. It was like out of a dream or something. She just said, "What are you doing here, Gaki?" He tilted his head to the side as he put the sword back on his back and said, "Wife, saving you, of course. Or would you have preferred to be killed by those two Anbu?" Anko put her hand to her bleeding shoulder and said, "I mean, why are you here? The stadium isn't anywhere close to this place. What are you doing here?" Naruto smiled again and said, "I was ordered to help defend the walls by some jonin when everything went to hell. I decided to play along for a bit before I made my escape." Anko looked at him, a bit puzzled, and said, "Your escape? What do you mean?" Naruto smiled even wider and said, "I am planning to leave Konoha, of course. This is the best chance that I will have to make a clean break. Everyone will be too busy cleaning up to bother with me, and even if they weren't, they wouldn't have the spare ninja to track me down." She frowned at him and said, "So why are you telling me this? I could easily report you now and have you taken in." Naruto stopped smiling and said, "You could, but you won't. My ears are very good, Enko-chan, better than most people realize, a benefit of my tenant. I heard what those Anbu said to you. I know that they weren't lying. The Sandaime ordered your execution despite the fact that you did nothing wrong. If you stay, you will be killed. I know that your life here wasn't a good one after Orochimaru left. In fact, it was comparable to mine on a smaller scale. You would have to be insane in order to not take this chance to get out of here." Anko frowned and said, "Once again, why are you telling me this? Sure, I won't turn you in, not like I could, but there's no reason to tell anybody your plans to escape." Naruto walked toward the injured ninja until he was about 5 feet away, Then he said, "The reason is simple, I want you to come with me." Anko's eyes widened in surprise. "What?" Naruto smiled again and said, "Did I stutter? I want you to come with me. You would have a much better chance of escape if you join up with me for one, plus I have quite a few friends to help us out. If you escape on your own, you'll just be eventually hunted down, if not by Konoha, then Orochimaru. So, what do you say?" Anko went over the odds in her head. Everyone else she trusted had betrayed her. What was stopping Naruto from doing the same? Then again, he went through a worse life than hers and would treat her well because he knows how bad such things could be. He was about the only one who knew her pain, though it was on a macro scale. She went over the possibilities in her head, trying to decide whether or not to trust him. Eventually, the fact that she couldn't hope to escape on her own and live one out, and she nodded as she said, "Fine Gaki, I'll go with you since I have no choice, but don't think that means that I like you or anything." Naruto nodded and said, "Okay then, come here." She walked to him and he put his arms around her before he said, "Kage Hoku," and vanished. Top of Hokage Monument. When Anko and Naruto reappeared, they were on top of the Nidame's head. Naruto let Anko go and she promptly staggered away a bit before emptying her stomach in a nearby bush. She wiped her mouth before panting out, "What the hell was that?" Naruto smirked before saying, "That was my Kage Hoku technique. It's a very fast transportation jutsu that uses darkness as a medium of transport. Since all darkness is connected, you can easily travel from one piece of it to another. Mind you, there has to be darkness of some kind at the starting point and ending point for it to work, and I have to have been there before in order to go there." Anko sat down and nodded as she tried to quell her stomach. She just said, "Nice technique, but it feels like I just got turned inside out, squeezed through a drinking straw, then got put in a blender before being put back to normal." Naruto smiled wide as he says, "Yeah, I know what you mean. You get used to it after a while, trust me. Now then, let's take a look at your shoulder." He went close to the snake ninja and she lowered one shoulder of her coat, revealing the wound. Naruto frowned before taking a bottle of disinfectant and spraying it liberally across the somewhat deep cut. Anko bit her lips slightly but didn't cry out, she had been through far worse. Naruto put the bottle back before taking out a large square bandage and applying it to the wound. She moved her arm a bit and found that her movement wasn't impeded at all by the healing apparatus and stood up as she replaced her coat. She looked at Naruto and said, "Okay, let's get going." Naruto smiled and said, "Not yet, Anko-chan. There's one other person that I have to collect before we go. Do me a favor and wait here while I get her." Anko frowned before she smiled sadistically and said, "Fine, but you'll pay later, brat." Naruto smirked before saying, "Depending on what kind of punishment you mean, I may like that." Then he vanished as she fought the blush that came on at his implications. Konoha Forest. Temari and Gaara were running through the forest. Kankuro was there before, but he was stuck when a Konoha ninja managed to catch up to them. Now they were running to the distance where Gaara was to transform. They knew that they had a squad after them, at least 2 people, maybe 3, so they were trying to get to the distance they were ordered to get to before Gaara transformed. Temari hoped that she would be able to get out of the way when they got there. Gaara was supposed to give her a few minutes in order to get out of the targeted area, but he was getting more and more unstable, so she couldn't be sure. Then they heard a voice yell, "Stop," and they turned back to see who it was, only to see the pink-haired girl from before, a small dog, and the dog guy that Naruto beat in the exams, Kiba. She remembered his name was. She didn't waste any time. Gaara went on ahead while she turned back to get rid of them. Kiba was already tired from his fight with Niji and Sakura. Well, she was Sakura in Season 1, take a guess at how useful she was. One use of Futon, Kamaitachi no Jutsu, and they were down for the count. Kiba and Akamaru sliced up rather badly, and Sakura was hit in the head by a part of a shattered branch and knocked out. The ninja dog was dispelled by a simple thrown kunai. Once the pursuers were taken care of, she continued on to join up with Gaara. She was specifically ordered to escort Gaara to the ordered location, probably to make sure that he went through with the plan or something. It was understandable since Gaara wasn't what most would call stable. You never really could tell what he was going to do before he did it. She was caught by surprise when she heard Gaara say, "Sabaka Q," before she was engulfed by sand. Her body was covered in sand but her face was free, so she managed to look down at Gaara, who had come out from behind a tree from where he was watching the fight. Temari gasped, "Gaara! What are you doing?" Gaara stared at her emotionlessly and said, "I am simply fulfilling the orders from our father or course." Temari was confused at what he meant by that. "What are you talking about, Gaara? What did he order you to do?" Gaara smiled sadistically, the same smile he got when he was going to really enjoy killing this person. He said, "Father's orders were for you and Kankuro to escort B to a certain place so that I could transform. My orders were that once we were there, I was to kill you both before going through with the transformation. We're not there quite yet, but we're close enough that it won't matter." Temari stammered out, scared out of her mind, "But why?" Gaara's smile widened and he said, "Apparently you two are not strong enough for father's tastes. He believes that you are both disgraces to his name, and I agree with him." Temari grasped at straws, hoping against hope that Gaara wasn't lying or wouldn't go through with it, but she knew that he would. "Gaara, you would kill your own brother and sister just because father ordered you to?" Gaara's insane smile widened even more as he raised his hand in preparation to finish her off, before he said, "Are you kidding? The only reason I haven't done this before is because I was ordered not to. I can't tell you how long I have wanted to kill you both, and now I get my wish. Goodbye Temari, and good riddance. Sabaku, so-so." She closed her eyes tightly as she waited for the end. Temari expected death to come as a sudden painful experience that vanished quickly. What she got was a falling sensation followed by a sudden impact. Then she opened her eyes and realized that she had fallen on the branch she was floating above in Gaara's sand. She also noticed that there was a decent amount of the sediment around her. She looked up at Gaara, thinking that he had let her go, but the reality was a bit less kind. It wasn't that he didn't want to kill her, it was that he couldn't kill her because he couldn't manipulate his sand. Naruto was there with his hand on Gaara's shoulder. Everyone was silent as Naruto said, "I believe I have said this before, but that is no way to treat a lady, especially your own sister." Then he kicked Gaara in the ribs, sending him flying away from the pair. Naruto jumped over to the branch, grabbed Temari, and jumped onto another branch as the sand came to life and tried to reaffirm its grip on the kunoichi. Gaara jumped back to where he was before with one difference: in place of his normal arm, there was a long limb of sand. There was also a long tail forming upon his tailbone. One of his eyes was also the strange yellow of Shikaku's. He was getting taken over by the demon within him. He yelled out, "You are my prey. You will not escape me, coward." Naruto just said, "Right, you keep thinking that. Temari-chan, I believe that it is time that we left." Then he used a Kage Hoku as he jumped into the shadow of the tree, leaving a frustrated and unstable Jinchuriki behind them with nothing to take out his rage and bloodlust on. Konoha Forest, a different part of it. Naruto appeared in the shadow of another tree and let Temari down as she leaned over the edge of the branch and empties her stomach. Naruto held her steady to make sure she didn't fall over. "Are you okay?" he asked. Temari recovered herself rather quickly and looked over at him. "I'm fine," she replied. Naruto gave her a little space. She would need some time to think about what just happened. After a minute she said, "How did you know where we were?" Naruto said, "I saw you three run into the forest and I went after you. I bypassed Kankuro and stumbled upon you two just as Gaara attacked you." Temari went silent again and after a moment asked, "Why did you save me? I'm an enemy." Naruto looked away, into the distance where you could hear a loud crashing noise if you really concentrated. He said, "I don't know, I just did it on instinct, I guess." Temari just chuckled listlessly and said, "So why don't you finish me off now? Even if you saved me on instinct, I'm still an enemy. I could turn on you at any moment." Naruto smiled a little and said, "That's true, but we both know who would win in a fight between us. And I don't consider you an enemy at all." She looked up, a bit confused, and said, "Why wouldn't you consider me an enemy? I'm a ninja of a village that is currently attacking your home. I just injured, maybe killed, 2 Konoha ninja not 10 minutes ago. How could you not consider me an enemy?" Naruto looked her in the eye and said, "I'll be honest with you, Temari-chan. I hate my village, I almost always have. I have been planning to betray it and escape for years now, and I decided to make my move now. They all hate me and I hate them back, so why would I stay? Whether or not Konoha loses the fight today, they will be far too weak to go hunting after a Nukenin immediately, so I'll have plenty of time to prepare myself for the oinin that will eventually come for me." Temari nodded. It made sense to leave now, when they wouldn't be able to go after you for some time. She thought to herself, maybe I should do the same. War is taxing on both the attacker and the defender. Suna will be weak for a little while even if they win, much more so if they lose. I should probably do what Naruto-kun is doing and leave now. Wait, Naruto-kun. When did I start calling him kun? Temari was interrupted from her thoughts when Naruto said something. What was that?" she asked. Naruto frowned a bit and reiterated, "I said that I will be leaving the village today with another kunoichi from my village. I already have a bit of an organization together from my travels, you see. I asked if you would want to come with us." Temari was a bit surprised. One second she was about to be killed, the next she was rescued by the hot guy that she had been dreaming about for around a month. But she wasn't one to look a gift horse in the mouth. She knew that if she ran now, on her own, she wouldn't last long. Naruto was strong, and if he had friends like he said that he did, then going with him would be a lot safer than going out on her own. She asked, "Why would you want me to go with you?" Naruto smiled and said, "I wouldn't be able to live with myself if I left such a beautiful lady fend for herself against those arrayed against her." Then he offered a hand to help her get up. She knocked his hand away and stood up on her own as she said, "Flattery will get you nowhere, pal. If we're going to leave, we had better go now." Naruto nodded and took Temari's hand before vanishing again, taking the Suna ninja with her. Hokage Monument Caves. Naruto, Temari, and Anko appeared in the darkness of the caves. They both managed to avoid vomiting this time around, even though it was Anko's second time through the Kage Hoku and Temari's third. Naruto had done it so many times that he wasn't even affected by it anymore. Anko recovered herself first and looked around before she asked, "Just where are we?" Naruto smiled and said, "About 500 feet below where we were before. These are a series of hidden caves that I excavated in the Hokage monument interior. Nobody knows about them except me and those I bring here, which include you two and 6 others who are already here." The group was distracted when a strange man with long black hair and a fishnet shirt came through the one door and said, "Ah, Naruto-sama. You have arrived sooner than you said you would. And who are these 2 lovely ladies with you? New test subjects, perhaps?" Naruto frowned and said, "Back off, Hogback. These 2 are coming with us and will be staying with us for the foreseeable future. Is everything ready?" The doctor nodded and said, "Yes, Perona, Yukino, and Haruka already moved the stuff that you had in your home into the caves, and Absalom already cleared out the area that you intend to move to. Now then, I believe that we should get our guests something before I have a look at your shoulder, miss." Then he turned around and yelled into the caves, "Kageru-chan. Get some for us, would you?" Then, he left the room. Temari looked at Naruto and said, "Who or what was that man?" Naruto smiled and said, "That would be Dr. Hogback. He may be strange and odd-looking, but don't let his looks fool you. He is an expert in medicine on par with Tsunade herself." Anko was just amazed that the strange man that Naruto had with him was that good of a doctor. He could tell that she was injured despite the fact that the wound was already distressed, covered with her coat, and she showed no sign of it. He must have some serious expertise in order to do something like that. Naruto opened the door and gestured, "This way please, ladies." Naruto led them through the caves while they looked around, not that there was much to see. Before long they came to a decent-sized room where there was a table surrounded by 9 chairs. 5 of these chairs were already occupied. The man known as Hogback was seated near the middle of the table. Across from him was an empty spot. Just down the table 2 women sat across from each other. One was a bookish young woman with glasses and short brown hair sitting across from a woman with long blonde hair. The first girl was looking at the blonde and blushing every now and then, though the blonde herself seemed oblivious to the looks. It was noticeable that they both wore slashed iwa hitayatesh around their necks. Sitting near the head of the table were 2 girls. One had long pink hair tied in 2 lengths that went down her back and wore a crown of all things on top of her head, across from a plain-looking girl with black hair wearing a sleeveless pink kimono. The 2 girls were glaring at each other like the other was the reason that evil existed in the world. You could practically see the sparks fly. One thing that was noticeable was that everyone there wore a simple necklace around their neck. They looked like the necklace of the Shodaime Hokage that the Sannin Tsunade wore, only the stone was a never-ending black instead of a pale green. They were all being served tea by a pale blonde girl in a sundress that had stitches over a good portion of her body. The blonde girl poured tea into the cups of 2 seats across from each other and the seat at the head of the table before bowing as she left the room. Naruto went and sat at the head of the table, and Temari and Anko, after a moment, sat in the 2 empty seats. The 2 girls sitting nearest to Naruto greeted him with differing amounts of enthusiasm. The pink-haired girl just said, "Hi Naruto-kun," while the black-haired girl merely said, "Greetings Naruto-sama." Naruto took a sip of his tea before saying to them all, "I would like to say that we have 2 more people joining our little group." He indicated Temari and said, "Sabaka no Temari," then he indicated Anko and said, "And Mitarashi Anko. I trust that you will make them feel welcome." They all nodded before Temari asked, "Naruto-kun, just what are we going to do? I understand that this place cannot be found, but we're not just going to stay here during the invasion, are we? I mean, there is a good chance of this mountain being destroyed." Naruto smiled and said, "You're right Temari-chan, that is why we shall be leaving almost immediately to a pre-prepared location that I have chosen in the last month." Then he turned to the pink-haired girl and said, "Perona-chan, you have already had the things in the house moved into the caves, right?" Perona smiled and said, "Yes Naruto-kun. These necklaces you gave us, that let us get into the caves from wherever we were, really helped with that. All of the equipment, paintings, and everything else in the house had already been moved here." Naruto smiled and downed the rest of his tea before standing up and saying, "Good, if that's the case then we can leave immediately. If you'll excuse me." Then he left the room, leaving them to introduce themselves to the 2 new members of their group. After Naruto left, the girl to Anko's right, the blonde girl, turned to her and said, "So, you're going to be working with us then, huh? Well, you look alright, I guess. My name is Suzushiro Haruka, nice to meet you. And my friend here." At this point she indicated the shy girl sitting across from her, the one sitting next to Temari, and said, "She's Kikukawa Yukino. You had better treat her nicely or we'll have trouble." The newly introduced Yukino nodded to each of the newcomers and quietly said, "Hello, it is nice to meet you both," before going back to staring at the tabletop while occasionally glancing at Haruka. Haruka pointed to the large man and said, "That creepy bastard there is Hogback, he's basically the mad scientist of Naruto-san's little group of misfits here. Absalom isn't here right now, but you'll meet him soon enough." Then she pointed to the black-haired girl, glaring at Perona, and said, "That one is Haku. I've only known her for a few months now and she's alright, although she is completely dedicated to Naruto-san for saving her. She's nice, but she's strong, so don't badmouth Naruto-san in front of her unless you want to be frozen. It's pretty obvious that she likes Naruto-san, but she never admits it out loud." Then she pointed to Perona and said, "And that is Perona, more or less Naruto-san's second-in-command and self-proclaimed girlfriend. I have never seen anyone stranger in my entire life, and she is strong as hell, so don't get on her bad side. She's head over heels with Naruto-san as well and protective of him as well, so don't try anything with him lightly. Like I said earlier, Haku likes Naruto-san, so those 2 don't get along too well." Then she turned back to the 2 and said, "So what are your stories? Naruto-san doesn't bring in anyone for no reason, so there must be some reason that you 2 were taken with him." Anko explained more or less her life in Konoha prior to and after Orochimaru's betrayal, how badly she was treated, and how she was betrayed and Naruto saved her from a pair of Anbu. Temari explained how her father was the Yandere Kazekage, and how her father ordered her Jinchuriki brother to kill her since he deemed her too weak to be a member of his family. Yukino spoke up, "It doesn't sound like either of you had it easy. You shouldn't be angry at your brother. I know that being a Jinchuriki isn't easy, nor is having everyone hate you." Anko turned to the girl and said, "How would you know? How did you meet Naruto-kun?" Luckily for her, Perona didn't hear her call him that, otherwise she would have jumped into the conversation. Yukino explained how she was the Rokubi Jinchuriki and how Haruka had been her best friend, and only friend until she was killed by an Iwa ninja. Then she bargained with Naruto that she would work for him in exchange for resurrecting Haruka. They were amazed that Naruto could bring people back from the dead and that Yukino was a Jinchuriki like Gaara. But it was quickly explained that there were certain limits behind it, such as the body having to be intact and the person not being dead for long. It was also explained that Naruto was the Kyubi Jinchuriki, which took Temari by surprise. Anko already knew. Temari thought to herself, the Rokubi and Kyubi Jinchurikis. They're so different from Gaara. Naruto is calm and strong, while this girl is very shy and hates fighting according to her. I guess everyone is different. Temari asked, "So what's the story with those necklaces?" Haruka fingered the jewel on hers as she said, "These? It's a way for us to enter and leave this place." Naruto had several of these jewels hidden throughout the various countries. There is also a larger version of the jewel here in the caves. These necklaces contain some of Naruto's shadow powers, allowing us to travel to each of the destination jewels at will through darkness, as though we were using Naruto's Kage Hoku technique. It's very useful, although recent. You too will probably get your own before too long. Anko nodded before she asked, "So what is Naruto-kun doing now?" Haruka just shrugged and said, "Hell if I know. Naruto, Absalom, and Hogback have been preparing a new location for us to stay, but he never explained how we're going to get there or where it is, or how we're going to take everything with us. They're keeping it a surprise, the bastards." Before Anko or Temari could ask another question, darkness swept through the room. This darkness, however, was tinged red and reeked of malice. It was darkness used in conjunction with the Kyubi's chakra. It stung a bit as it passed, but once it did, it was like light didn't exist anymore. Before anyone could panic, Hogback yelled, "Everybody stay calm. This is Naruto-sama's doing, so don't worry. Just sit back and relax, though you should try to hold on to your lunch." The reason that Hogback said this was evident as a deep voice thrummed through the cave, making the walls shake slightly. The voice was demonic and deep, and it said, "Dai Kage Hoku 3. Then there was a whirl of motion, and then the darkness vanished and things were the same as they were, though everyone had to fight in order to keep their lunch. After a minute of everyone getting their bearings, Naruto walked in looking a bit tired. Anko promptly addressed everyone's concerns when she asked, "What the hell was that?" Naruto smiled in a tired fashion and said, "Follow me." Then he walked through the door that led to the room in which they entered. When they finally got there, they found that one of the walls was badly cracked. They heard a muffled yell on the other side before the wall blew inward. A strange amalgam of man and beast stepped through. The creature was wearing one of Naruto's shadow necklaces. The thing smiled as he said, "It worked just like you said, Naruto-sama. The entrance was suddenly blocked off and I just broke through, easy as pie." Naruto nodded as Haku asked, "Naruto-kun, what's going on? What did you just do?" Naruto smiled and said, "Take a look." As he gestured out of the newly formed door. The group looked out and was amazed that there was a large and lush forest outside the entrance. Naruto smiled and said, "Everybody, welcome to Kusa no Kuni. Through a more powerful and tiring version of my Kage Hoku technique, I transferred the entire cave system into this place. It was originally the cave that the Gobi no Inu used as its home before it was captured by ninja from Kusagakure. I had Absalom come here beforehand to clear out the nearby dangerous wildlife and blow open the new door. This is where we will be using as our home base." Temari nodded as she went outside and looked around. There was nothing but lush forests and tall grasses all around. The cave was almost impossible to spot from anywhere around them. You would have to be really close to find it. Naruto smiled and said, "We'll be working on a new door soon, of course, but for now, you guys should get comfortable. We'll be staying here for a while." Then he took a deep breath before he walked into the shadow of a nearby tree and said, "Now then, I need to go check on something. I'll be back in a few minutes." Kage Hoku. Then he vanished. Naidame's head, Hokage Monument. Naruto arrived on top of the Hokage Monument to see the rest of the invasion. Things were going well, though the fighting in the streets was going well. The snakes had been defeated by the rank and file ninja under Ibuki's leadership. The weaker ninja were already being picked off by the defenders. The only things that mattered were the fact that the Ichibi was very close to the village and about to start his attack, and the Hokage was losing his fight. He saw Orochimaru had used the Edo Tensei in order to resurrect the Shodaime and Naidaime Hokages, and together they were beating the Sandaime into the ground. Then he frowned as Sarutobi used the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu and two of them grabbed onto the clones. The old monkey was up to something. But Sarutobi wasn't his concern. What did concern him was the location of the Kazekage. He couldn't see him anywhere even with his better-than-average eyes. Then he caught sight of a tattered Kazekage robe inside the barrier where the Sandaime was fighting and realized what must have happened. Orochimaru must have been disguising himself as the Kazekage. Normally that wouldn't bother him, except that he knew that the Kazekage intended to participate in the invasion himself. There was only one possible reason that the Kazekage would give up the chance to take on Sarutobi, and that was if he was dead. Orochimaru betrayed the Kazekage and killed him. That was the most likely scenario. But at least the fight was going in the snake's favor. Then he turned to watch the Ichibi attacking the outskirts of the village, and he smiled at the power of the bijou. That was until he spotted a very unwanted figure that went through several hand seals before a large toad appeared to stand against two enormous tanuki of sand. The figure was Gamabunta, and standing atop his head was a tired-looking Jiraiya holding his bleeding side. He had to give the old man credit, he didn't stay down. He must have fought tooth and nail to get out of the hospital, and now he was standing against the Ichibi in his condition. The man was mad but determined. His attention was once more drawn to the fight between Sarutobi and Orochimaru. He saw that the Shodaime and Naidaime had somehow fallen and that the Sandaime was run through by Orochimaru's Kusanagi sword. Before long, Sarutobi pulled back and yelled "Fun" before Orochimaru's arms went purple. Not long afterward, the Sandaime fell. Naruto watched in concern as Orochimaru was saved by the 4 Oto ninja that formed the barrier, and the 5 of them escaped. After a moment, Naruto realized what the old monkey did, and he was angry as hell. He said under his breath, "Damn you, Sarutobi." The old man must have used the fucking Shiki Fuin. It's the only way he could have taken down the resurrected Hokages. If he used that to rip away the soul of Orochimaru's arms, then his shadow is useless now. Even if I took it, the zombie created through it wouldn't be able to use his arms either, so I have to wait for him to be healed before I can go after him. Fucking old man, irritating me until the end and beyond. Then he calmed down a bit and thought, it makes no difference, I can afford to wait. Orochimaru will find a way to get his arms back, he is persistent like that. I will simply wait until he is healed and then take his shadow, it's nothing too major. Then he looked to the Battle of the Titans to see that Gamabunta and the Ichibi were exchanging Suiton and Futon Jutsu that would make anyone envious. The only question was where Jiraiya was. He couldn't have been dead, otherwise Gamabunta wouldn't be there. He must have been hiding somewhere waiting for something to make his move. After a little while of watching the fight, his question was answered when Jiraiya was spat out of Gamabunta's mouth. Through the spray of water that was the remnants of the most recent clash on ninjutsu between the two great entities, which he used as a smoke screen. The Ichibi couldn't see the old man, so he managed to land a solid hit on the sleeping Gaara, waking him up. Then as Gaara shook the sleep from his mind, the old man slapped a paper with a seal written on it that suppressed Gaara's chakra as well as the Ichibi's, causing the body of the Tanuki to crumble away and the pair of ninja, including the now unconscious Gaara, to fall. Jiraiya was caught in Gamabunta's tongue and Gaara landed on the dirt, probably cracking a rib or two as he did, still unconscious, but with the Ichibi sealed he could sleep in peace. Gamabunta immediately leapt over to the hospital to return the weakened Sannin to his bed rest. Naruto saw the Suna ninja start to retreat with Gaara's defeat. Most of the Oto ninja were dead and the remaining ninja also began to escape. The Konoha forces began to harass and skirmish with them to keep them on the defensive and eventually chase them from the village. One of the Suna ninja carried Gaara with him. Naruto sighed. Konoha had survived the invasion because he underestimated the old man. Then he smiled because he knew that it didn't matter. Konoha was weakened, that was good enough for now. This only meant that he would have the chance to do the job himself. Orochimaru's plan had failed, so now he, Naruto, was the most likely person to put an end to Konoha, and he would do his best to make sure that he did not fail where Orochimaru did. I meant to do this to commemorate the 20th chapter, but I kept forgetting, so I have to do it here 3 chapters late. Here it is, my first ever omake. Omake, Naruto hates yaoi fangirls. Naruto was straddling a brown-haired girl as she said, "Narusasu forever." Naruto yelled, "Shut the hell up," then he punched her right across the face. The fangirl was relentless and yelled, "Naruto/Kakashi is sexy." Naruto yelled, "I said shut up." Then, he punched her again. The fangirl continued, "Naruto/Kiba is awesome." Naruto yelled, "Why don't you shut the hell up?" Then he punched her again, desperate to make her stop the needless depravity that had no chance of ever happening. The fangirl did not stop, however. Naruto/Minato is excellent. Naruto punched her again, yelling, "He's my father, you sick fuck." Then the fangirl yelled, "Naruto/Inuyasha." Naruto just stared at her before smiling maliciously and yelling, "We're not even from the same series, you dumb bitch." Then punched her again. The fangirl just frowned and said, "Fine." Naruto/Sakura then. Naruto just stared at her for a minute, and after a little while the fangirl asked, "What?" Naruto had to stop himself from shaking with rage, but failed as he raised a fist high and shouted, "Are you fucking kidding me? She has a bigger dick than all of them." Then he punched her again and knocked her out as the screen fades to black. Thanks for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, comment down below and let me know. Also share this video with your friends. I have created a playlist of this what if where you guys can find all the parts. See you in the next video.